Hi, welcome to ReAudito Mercury. The current business model of journal publishing faces a pressing problem. These includes outrageous subscription and publishing charges. Even though research is publicly funded, due to the subscription model, information on research findings is inaccessible to the public and unaffordable for education and research institutions. Many authors with insufficient funds fail to publish their quality research in a popular open-access journal due to extortionate processing charges. Inferior closed peer review. Flawed and biased experimental design can give the wrong conclusions that can mislead the society for generations. Inferior quality peer review helps to disseminate these unreproducible research findings. Unpaid reviewers and authors. Authors and reviewers don't get any monetary incentives for the work of writing and reviewing the papers. How ReAudito Mercury addresses these issues. ReAudito Mercury is a peer-reviewed journal that provides a transparent and competent forum for scrutiny, discussion and publishing of scientific research in the field of medical and life sciences. Experimental design build on rigor, transparency, reproducibility with precise, apposite and unbiased dealing in choice of methodology, data collection, analysis, interpretation and reporting of results is an essential part of every research. We provide peer review to improve your documentation of the experiment by auditing in the purview of all these principles. An excellent peer review assures the manuscript to be scrutinized, verified and refined through peer feedback before it is published. The purpose of peer review is to appropriately detect errors, audit the soundness of methodology, increase the clarity of study results, interpretation and narration, and check the completeness of coverage. We do peer review based on these principles. Originality of content. Authenticity and professionalism in writing are requisite. Unreferenced use of other person work is not acceptable. Comprehensiveness. The report should have a relevant and expressive title, abstract and conclusion which pronounces the essence of the research. The reporting should be clear, concise, elaborative, with unambiguous and precise terminology and logical statements containing premise, argumentation, and conclusion with inductive and deductive arguments. The reporting should provide the function of each step in the protocol with proper argumentation. The article should have enough details of techniques and experimentation for researchers attempting to reproduce the results. Experimental design. The article should explicitly state the purpose of research investigation and the knowledge gap it strives to bridge. Experimental design should use a valid procedure of systematic observation, measurement, and the formulation, modification, and testing of hypotheses. Qualification of reviewers. We pick reviewers with the utmost care who has the relevant skills with experience. We request reviewers to be kind, respectful, and always use logical statements and refute the central point with an explanation and/or evidence. Reviews must be elaborative, sensible and of greater utility. Otherwise, reviews will be rejected by our editorial board members or invited experts. Reviewers are expected to review using these questionnaires. Originality and honesty. Discuss whether the content of the article is original and novel. Point out the wrongful appropriation of other authors' work, or own work without acknowledgement, if present. Make sure the article explains all the conflicts of interest that may compromise the author's judgment in conducting or reporting the research. Please find out and investigate if the article is free from any kind of manipulation or fabrication of photos and data or other dishonest practices. Express your concern and ask for evidence to the author if you find something suspicious. Depth and comprehensiveness. Make sure the reporting is clear, concise, elaborative, and contains unambiguous statements with precise terminology. Specify the sentences and paragraphs which are difficult to comprehend. Inspect each step in the protocol, and make sure the author presents the function of each step with proper argumentations and why the author choose a given protocol from other alternative methods. Discuss if the article has enough details of techniques and experimental settings for researchers attempting to reproduce the results. Experimental design, validity and biases. Comment on the appropriateness of techniques and correctness of the implementation. Discuss whether the authors have mentioned all kinds of important variables such as independent, dependent, controlled and confounding. Check if authors have taken appropriate controls, positive and negative, to determine the cause and effect relationships. Scrutinize how the author has handled random variation or noise, that is the variability of observation between individual samples and between experiments. Have they used replicates, biological replicates that are independent samples in the same group of an experiment, or technical replicates that are multiple measurements made on the same sample, and repeated experiments to confirm that their findings are reproducible, and other researchers can replicate the experiment? Discuss if the sample size of replicates is large enough, so the results are conclusive. Check whether authors have mentioned how they decided the best sample size. For example, power analysis, think about possible bias the author might have and question the author how they have taken care of it. Inspect the possibility of the carelessness in experiment design, whether authors have made selective measurements or cherry-pick the data, whether authors have done selective analysis such as p-hacking, whether the authors are selective in revealing information, whether there is confirmation bias. Check whether the article mentions the limitations of the experiment design, criticism, problems of feasibility in conducting the experiment due to reasons like non-availability of resources or time, and enhancement that can be made in the future experiments for further confirmation of results or evidence in an unbiased manner. Reviewers can suggest the author for noting down the criticism and present it in the article. Crowdfunding business model. In a year, about 6 million crowdfunding campaigns take place, so crowdfunding is also a lucrative and sustainable way of raising funds for publishing. In ReAudito crowdfunding model, some average 20 backers are enough to raise your funds for publishing your articles. The crowdfunding model also helps to build a reputation, social proof, and validation. When people fund your article, they believe and appreciate your work, and authors feel gratified for the contribution they made in science. When you share your article, it also increases the number of readers, so more people to participate in your research. ReAudito asks to share a story about your article. Your research and its impact are hard to discern by common people who are not in science. Sharing a story, with an appealing premise, argumentations, and conclusion, with a dumped-down version of your research, invites more readers, and more backers. Help ReAudito to build a scientific temperament among people, by funding, reading and publishing research. We believe ReAudito Mercury will give a sustainable crowdfunding business model for publishing, and the whole process of review and the review questionnaires will evaluate your article with justice and fairness. Do share it. Thank you.